Hello, Internet. My name is Ryan Ingram, and a while back, my brother Will and I were attempting to do Seek Wisdom TV. We made another YouTube channel, and our goal was to interview one person per week. But that is right up until we had to take over property management, so we really got derailed from that. But nonetheless, I did not want this interview to go to waste. This guy means a great deal to me, and I just wanted to get it out there so you could enjoy all the wisdom that this man has to offer. Hello, and welcome to Seek Wisdom TV. This is our third episode, and we're fortunate enough to have Rich Allen here on the show. Rich Allen means a great deal to me. He has helped me start my insurance agency, and he probably helped me circumvent several years worth of trial and error through his wisdom and expertise. So thanks so much for being on the show, Rich. Do you want to do like a little, is there anything else you want to kind of preface on about
Oh,
yourself?
well, listen, I'm just honored to be here, Ryan, with you and Will. Man, this is a perfect start to a day for me.
So primarily now you do business coaching, correct?
That's right.
Awesome. Now, how did you get into that? What was your motivation?
I'll give you a little bit of backstory so you can kind of understand it. You're from the great state of Ohio, I know, and so am I. I was born in just outside of Cleveland. Grew up in a very large family. I have 11 brothers and sisters. So I grew up on the poor side of town, if you can imagine. My dad was the hardest working guy I ever knew. Worked three jobs most of his life. And then at the age of 36, made probably the most difficult decision of his life. And that was to quit his day job and his other temporary jobs and start his own business. So at age 36, my dad started his own window washing business. And guys, I'll tell you, my dad was fantastic. He was the best window washer you could find. Excellent at his trade, great with people, just unbelievable, highly motivated, hard worker, had no clue how to run a business. And so those of us that worked with him, the boys in the family that were old enough, our job was we were the slave labor. We went to work every day, didn't get paid. Our job was simply to do it to help make some funds and provide for the family. And we did it willingly. But my dad didn't know how to operate the business, didn't know how to run it, didn't know how to structure it. And one at a time, each one of us left. We finally decided, look, there's a life out there better than this for us. And so one at a time, we went off to find our own path. In fact, one of my brothers decided to open up his own window washing business and compete with dad because he thought he could do it better, right? So it was that was kind of the environment that I grew up in. I got lucky. I got a chance to go to college, went into the military for a time, ended up going into a couple of large corporate jobs. I ended up running my own manufacturing business. Had a chance to run a business for several years, but I always wanted to go back and help the business owners that reminded me of my dad. And so 15 years ago, I retired from running a business, took a couple of years off to hang with my kids, and then have spent this last 14 years basically working with small business owners to help them think through how to run a business and how to make good decisions to make that business not only profitable, but sustainable and one that they can be proud of and not have to feel like they have to work their tail off every day. So that's kind of the journey of how I got here. It's been, nobody has a straight path. None
Right.
of us do. Mine certainly wasn't. But I'm enjoying where I've landed.
Man, at this point, I kind of feel like a horrible friend. I didn't realize that you served in the military.
I was in the military. That was honestly, the military was my ticket to college. Being from a poor family, there was no way I was going to college. But I had a chance. I applied for an Army ROTC scholarship. Got lucky. Was one of very few kids in Northeast Ohio who got granted a 4-year full ride, all expense paid college experience to any place I wanted to go. They gave me 288 colleges and said, pick one.
Oh, wow.
And then I had a 6-year commitment after that. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It changed the trajectory of my life.
And then you said 6 years you served in the
I was
Army?
4 years active, 2 years reserve, right?
Gotcha. And how was your transition from the military into, you said corporate America is where you went?
I did, yeah. I was in the Corps of Engineers, believe it or not. My background's in accounting, so I'm a bean counter by by schooling, but I ended up in the Corps of Engineers. It was a great experience to be in the Army, right, or in the military, because you learn discipline, you learn how to supervise, you learn how to improvise, and you live in environments that they aren't civil environments in many cases. I was overseas for most of my time in the service, so I learned a lot, and I became a good supervisor of other people. I had several people in my unit, and I grew up that way. I loved the experience, but I didn't like the formal structure of the military, that it was this discipline. Every 2 years you'd probably get reassigned and you may get a promotion, and it was very linear approach. I thought I could do better. So I stepped out. I thought I was going to go run a manufacturing business right out of the military, because I was basically leading people. But I ended up met a guy that worked at Texas Instruments. He was a recruiter. And when I got to talking to him, he said, "Man, I need somebody to help me recruit. Can you go recruit people?" I said, "Yeah, look, I'd love to. Let's go do that." So I became a technical recruiter for Texas Instruments right out of the gate, and changed. I mean, again, that's brought me to Dallas. Um, Gave me a great experience. I knew a little bit about engineering because of my Corps of Engineer days, and it put me on a path to be able to. I I rose fairly quickly through the ranks at Texas Instruments. I was the youngest vice president in HR in the organization back in the '80s when I was there, and and I got to learn a lot about what it takes to run a big company and how to motivate people to do the right things and build compensation systems and programs that inspire people to give their best effort. So that was kind of how it transpired.
Now, what would be some of the differences between running a big company versus a small company?
It's interesting, and it's a great question, Will, because the reality is in a big company, everybody is specialized, right? Everybody's got their own lane. So somebody does purchasing, somebody does accounting, somebody does inventory control, someone does manufacturing, somebody does engineering. In a small business, we start out doing it all, right? We do it all. You guys know this, right? Every entrepreneur starts out, he may only have one person or two people on his team. There are still 10 boxes on his org chart. They all just happen to have his name in it. That's the big difference from being in a big company where you can just say, "Hey, I need something," go to the specialist that handles that and they can help you. Where in a small business, you got to learn how to multitask without losing focus on the things that are most important. And frankly, that's a huge struggle for most business owners, right?
Now, when you were working at Pella and Texas Instruments, did you have in the back of your mind that you wanted to use these experiences to help small business owners, or when did the correlation between, like the passion that you had for small business owners and helping them not run a business like your dad, when did that come in?
It was always in the back of my mind, Ryan, because I'd have constant conversations with my dad, even though I had moved away. I knew what my dad was doing, and we'd talk, and I'd see him often, and he'd tell me about the struggles, and I knew what I was doing in the manufacturing business I was running when I had a chance to do that at Pella Corporation. And I thought to myself, man, I wish I'd have known some of the things that I know now. I wish I'd have known them back when I was working with him, because we probably could have turned that business into one that was profitable and successful. and worked more like a well-oiled machine. But we didn't, right? I had no clue. So all along, I was thinking, man, I wish I could help my dad, but I just didn't have the capacity to do it. And so when the opportunity hit me, I took this business. We acquired a business. It was a $30 million business, had about 280 people in the business, not making money, not old, kind of tired business. Over a 7-year period, we transformed that into a business doing well over 100 million in revenue, having about 400 people, 2 different plants, and we owned the top end of our market category. And our toughest competitor made a bid to buy the business from us. So we sold the business to a competitor, which gave me an opportunity to basically take a retirement package. And I did, because at that point I thought, wow, here's my opportunity. I've just had this experience. I've made a ton of mistakes. I've done some things right. I made some mistakes, but we had this huge success. How could I take that then and find a way to help guys like my dad? And I was still young enough to do it. And that's what kind of gave me the motivation. In fact, you see the bike on the wall behind me. I used this bike to help the factory workers in the manufacturing business I was working in, that I was leading. I used this bike to help them understand how a business worked, because nobody knew how business worked, right? Everybody just came in the morning, clocked in, did their work, kept their head down, tried to get through their 8 hours, go away without the supervisor or their boss getting after them, or, writing them up for something. That was kind of I didn't want that. I wanted them to participate with me in helping make the business better, but they had no clue how it works. So I used a bike to do that, and I still do it today. So the bike is my metaphor for a business, and it's how I help people think through what part of their business needs to be tuned up so their bike can go really fast.
Did you find that the workers enjoyed learning how the business works?
They did. In fact, it was interesting. Well, the first time, a short story, I had this idea, right? This kind of came to me. I do a lot of cycling. And so I had this bike at home. It was the one I rode, 30 years ago. But I brought the bike in, got a meeting together, bought both first and second shift together in the part of our warehouse. I put the bike on a table at the front of the meeting, and I got everybody's attention. And I said, guys, what's this? And they all looked at me like I had lost my mind. They thought, man, what a nutcase they sent us for this one. And I said, look, this isn't a bike, this is our business. And then I took them on a lap around the business and told them how all the parts related to an aspect of a business. And Will, after the meeting, a bunch of them came up to me and said, hey, I know what's wrong with our bike. And they started sharing with me where our bike was broken. Well, because look, everybody can relate to a bike. Right? We all know how to ride. We've ridden a bike as a kid. We know what it means. But a business is like a foreign idea, right? When someone would talk to you and say, hey, man, why don't you start a business? They say, man, I don't know the first thing about doing that. But we know the first thing about riding a bike, right? We know what the handlebars are for. We know how to pedal. We know how to balance. We know we got to have air in the tires. We got to adjust the seat. We know all that stuff. All that stuff applies in business. And they were not only willing, they enjoyed feeling like they had a voice in making the business better. And that's our argument. Look, it's not because I'm all that smart. Frankly, I'm not. But I know how to get people around me to think deeply about what's going on in the business, and that's what made us so successful.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I would say that probably, satisfies one of the basic human needs that we have of being part of something much greater than ourselves. And I think a lot of times as a business gets larger, you kind of become more so a number. You have specific tasks like the specialist that you talked about, and then you kind of lose sight of how your role is imperative in the big picture of the business. So I think that's genius what you did there.
I think that's spot on, Ryan. There's a lot of statistics out today that suggest that well over 50% of people who are working in a business somewhere are not actively engaged in the business. In fact, I think the number is just over 50% of people are actively looking for a new job right now today. So think about that. Anybody that's listening to this, if you've got 10 employees, 5 of them have their resume on Indeed, and they're looking for the next best opportunity. How much do you think they're putting effort into making your business better? Probably not. So one thing we can do as business owners is to actively engage people in making the business better, rather than just giving out directives and making assignments and giving, and assuming that they just brought their hands and they didn't bring their head. Engage their mind, engage their heart, get them actively involved in it. And they don't want to go anywhere else. They can't imagine that some other place would be a better place to work. And I think that's the key to success. Can we do that?
Now, since you mentioned the bike, would you mind giving just like a 30,000-foot overview of the different aspects of the bike and how they actually correlate to business?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick lap around the bike, and I'll keep it relatively short. But here are the big points, right? We steer a bike using the handlebars, right? But as a kid, we like to ride our bikes with our hand in the air, right? That made us kind of a cool kid. As business owners, oftentimes we ride our business with our hands in the air. We're not steering it. So we have to steer a business. How do you steer a business? By setting a vision of what you want the business to look like in 3 to 5 years in the future, setting the standards for your business. What level of performance are you going to demand for your business? And what's the purpose? What's the mission you're going to support through the success of your business? That's how you steer a business. Then there's a frame on the bike. The frame is what everything attaches to. If it's not securely attached, it's going to be wobbly, shake. It's not going to be very secure. We have a frame in our business too. Many people think the frame of our business are our people, and that's wrong. The frame in our business are our systems and our organization. So it's organization and structure. So we need to have an organization structure so that people know how they fit with one another. We have to have detailed job responsibilities so everybody knows what they're responsible for, how they're going to be measured, and what behaviors we expect of them. And then we have to have an accountability system so that everybody gets held accountable for the things that they said they're going to do, so that everybody does the work that the team needs to be done. Then there are 2 places on a bike where the rubber meets the road: the front wheel and the back wheel. It's truly where the rubber meets the road. In business, there are 2 places where the rubber literally meets the road. The front wheel of our business is our ability to win new customers. So we've got to have a system, a process down to be able to, on a consistent basis, be able to attract and convert prospects into new customers. If you're not growing, you're dying. You've heard it, right? So we've got to be able to do that. Then the back wheel is our ability to serve those customers. We make a promise on the front wheel, and we have to deliver on that promise on the back wheel by being able to basically provide in a systematic way the same quality service, whether it's Monday morning or Friday afternoon, to the customers so that they love what we do. We have a seat on the bike, and the seat is where our team sits. It's not where the owner sits. The owner sits in the car. The team sits on the seat of the bike. So we have to adjust that seat so that it's fit perfectly so that people can put good power to the pedals. And that means our hiring program, how we onboard people, our compensation program, our rewards program, how we share in the profits, how we communicate with our team. All those are adjustments to the seat so that we can get them right. Right? We have brakes on the bike, one for the front wheel, one for the back. The brakes control the speed of a bike, in our business, our breaks are essentially our financial controls and our key performance indicators. We have to have good, solid financials in our business so we can know when it's time to pull the brake on either the front wheel or back wheel of our business. And then lastly, we've got the pedals right here where everybody's on. It's called the front crank. And the front crank of the bike, the main sprocket, if you will, that represents how engaged our team is in powering our business forward, whether they're on the small ring or they're on the big ring, really going fast. And so we got to know that. We've got to know what's going on in the minds of our team members. We want them pushing on the big ring. And so we've got to do the right things to be able to get them there. That's how a bike is like a business. Does that make sense?
Makes tons of sense. Now, having said all of that, I imagine if you are like a solopreneur or, like 1 to 2 to 3 people in your business, that may have sounded like pretty overwhelming and a lot to take in. Do you find like a sweet spot as far as when people should start implementing these things, or should it happen ideally even before the business starts with 0 employees?
I think it should start right from the beginning. And look, in the beginning, we don't have to build ourselves a sexy, fast racer, right? But we know we're going to have a system for winning customers. We know we're going to have a system to deliver on the promise we make. We know those things are true. And to do that, we know we're going to have some structure to get work done and have people assigned to different tasks. Even if I'm doing it myself, I've got to split up my day or split up my week so that I can work on front wheel things on sometimes, back wheel things on the other times, make sure I'm keeping my books, that I'm doing whatever work it is, maybe dealing with my virtual assistant if it's the only person that I have working with me. So I think we've got to keep the mindset of, look, I can't, unless, here's the way I think about this, Ryan. A lot of guys start their business kind of like they're on a unicycle, right? And I don't know if you have that picture in your mind, but when you're on a unicycle, man, you can't stop pedaling, right? It's a direct gear thing. You're constantly moving, you're constantly on, you're always about to fall, right? That's how we feel. And as a solopreneur, we don't have anything to steer it, right? We're steering it with our legs. Our hands are just flailing. That's kind of the way most entrepreneurs attack starting a business. I don't think you should do a unicycle. I don't think it works. I say start with a bike.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so earlier you said 5 out of 10 employees are disengaged at work. So if you figure out a way to get to the hearts of, at least half of those disengaged people, you could be 30 to 40% more productive.
It's unbelievable, right? Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of statistics that I know. I mean, you guys have heard these facts, right? But the majority of customers leave a business because of perceived indifference, right? Most customers don't leave because they get crappy service or they don't like the product. They just don't think it matters to the business whether they're a customer or not, right? So we know that just tells us right away, look, if we want to keep more customers, just let them know that we care about them being a customer, right? Reach out to them every now and then and say, man, I'm so glad you're doing business with me. Thank you so much. What else can I do for you, right? It's not hard to let them know we care. The same thing is true for our team members. We have to do that for customers because we need the revenue and we want their business. But we need to do that for employees and team members because we need their skill, we need their head, we need them. We didn't hire them just to dig a ditch. We hired them to ask ourselves, do we need to be digging this ditch or is there a better way to do it? Right? And so it's not difficult, but again, what tends to happen is, as business, you guys know this, right? You guys have launched a couple of businesses and you're off doing your thing, and you know that you get so deep into the daily issues of the business that we can't see the forest for the trees, right? So we don't ever stand back. We don't ever look over and say, I wonder how we're doing here. I wonder how things are going. We're just down there, chopping through the underbrush, trying to get to the next tree. Question is, are we going the right direction?
Mhm. Now, is that what you would say? So with all the small businesses that you work with, or all of the businesses in general, is there a few stumbling blocks that are most common that you run into?
Yep, there are, Ryan. And I'll tell you one that's big that, some people aren't going to, may not agree with, but I think this is one of the bigger issues. Most people who start their own business did it after working for someone else, right? Most people start out like I did, like you probably did. You worked for someone else, then you said, "Look, I work for an idiot. I think I'll go do this myself. I think I'd I'd be a better boss." And then you realize you're the idiot, right? And so but you do that. So you started over there. But one of the things that you throw out because you don't like that experience that you had, one of the things you throw out are all the rules, all the bureaucracy, right? All the structure. We throw that away and we say, look, we're going to be more of a free society here. We're going to be creative and do our own thing. And everybody, I'm just going to hire people that take take responsibility and are, bring their creativity, and they don't put any structure in their business. And as a result, when they start adding people to their team, they get people who have very different opinions about what the customer should get or how we should behave or what our level of performance ought to be. And it's anarchy. And look, all we have to do is look around us today and we can see what anarchy produces, right? It produces nothing but train wreck of activity. And that happens in businesses way too often. People like structure. I know sometimes we say we don't, but the reality is, I can tell, I know that both of you guys would like to know, look, my job in this is this, your job in this is that. We all like that. So that we know it's not, I wonder if he's going to do it. Do I have to do it today, right? Who's going to do that? Who's opening up? Who's closing? Who's counting the receipts? It's better when we know the structure and how things are going. That's probably the biggest issue that I see with small businesses, is that we want to throw out all the stuff from our past. And with that, it's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We throw out the good stuff as well. And we can't. We have to have structure. And look, that's coming from a guy who lived with 11 brothers and sisters. And frankly, I didn't like any kind of structure, man. I mean, I'd rather there be no structure. Mm-hmm. But my mom and dad had structure, right? When you got that many on your team, everybody's got a set of rules and you got to play by the rules. Makes it go better.
That's so many people in your family. Now, did your brothers and sisters, is the competition, the competitor window washing business still around?
My brother, does he still do it? Yeah, absolutely. He's great at it. In fact, my dad passed away about 6 years ago. And my brother really didn't compete with my dad. He just wanted to go start his own thing, do it. And my brother is great. In fact, my brother, he works with all my dad's old customers because, he's just like my dad in terms of his personality and his detailed mindedness. And so they love him just like they loved my dad. So he's an advocate. He uses the bike as a platform for how he runs his business, and he's doing quite well. He's actually he's a first responder. He's a firefighter and a first responder as well. So that's kind of a side gig for him.
Oh, wow.
I know you mentioned structure earlier and being in the military, and one of the reasons you left the military was just because of how rigid it is. Do you find that small businesses can have too much structure?
Well, it's a great point. Look, when I say structure, I don't mean that we have to be overbearing. I'm not talking about structure that weighs people down. What I am talking about is a clear understanding of, look, here's how everybody fits together. Here's the roles. Here's your responsibilities. Who's going to do what? So we make sure we don't drop anything through the cracks. And well, here's how we're going to hold, here's how everybody's going to take ownership or be, some people say, look, you can't hold people accountable. People have to take ownership. I agree with that. So ownership, accountability, use your term, whatever it is, but we have to have a method to make sure that the work gets done. And we're not doing it because we want to burden the team members. Honestly, the reason we want to do it is because we made a promise to our customer and we have to deliver on the promise. In fact, the businesses that do the best not only deliver on the promise, but they go a little further. They do a little more than what the customer expects. And that's when customers start to talk about us and say, man, you got to do business with these guys because they're awesome, right? That's why we need structure. So it's not overburdening. I'm not telling you to micromanage. Hire people, let them go. Give them the flexibility to do it. Give them responsibility for something, and then say, look, you figure out the best way to do it because I don't know the best way to do it. So don't be a top-down controller, but have structure so that everybody knows who's got what responsibilities and authorities in your business.
I think that's really good stuff. And speaking of, I know I really admire kind of the funnel that you have and all of the content that you give out for free before you even ask for anything in return. So I know, I've been to several of your in-person coaching sessions where all I had to do was get there and then you took care of it from there. And you do that quarterly? Is that?
We do it about 3 times a year.
Gotcha. Yep. And how would you suggest if somebody hears this and likes everything? I know you do a lot on Facebook, or where's the best place to get more of this phenomenal information?
Well, thanks for that, Ryan. Here's my thinking. A few months ago, as we're in the middle of this epidemic, this pandemic thing that's going on, and the virtual lockdown and whatnot, I had this thought that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be staying at home and they're thinking to themselves, man, this may be a good time for me to start my own thing, to start my own business. Or there have been people who've been hit pretty hard by this with a small business, and now they've got to restructure, kind of redesign their business to make it survive, if you will, or be successful. So I decided to take this last month, the month of June, I decided to take the month and do a daily teaching about the bike and things you ought to do in your business. I called it the 2020 Tour to Profit Challenge. So it was 22 days, so all the work days in the month of June, 22 days of teaching with associated workbooks, basically, to take you through every aspect of a business. And it's free. I'm just giving it away. I've got that available. It's on my website. If you just go to Tour to Profit, one word, Tour to Profit, like Tour de France, just Tour to Profit, TOURDEPROFIT.com/challenge. And you'll find, all you have to do is just sign in and you can get access to this free course that I did. And look, I'm not trying to do anything with it other than to give huge value to people who are in desperate need right now. And that's my gift to you. So if somebody's thinking they're interested, you can go there. It's up, it's available. You can download the worksheets. You can follow along, do it at your own pace, and you'll be able to take some of the concepts and really be able to apply it in your business. That's probably the best way to get started.
That's awesome. And I just recently saw it on the internet, but to your point, maybe or maybe not, I don't know if it's true. Mark Cuban recently said that during this pandemic is going to be the best time of the history of the human race to start a business. So I think,
well, if you think about that, if you go look at all the best businesses, the biggest businesses, they were all started during a downturn. They were all started during a crisis. And so this isn't the time, look, this isn't the time to be timid. Now's the time. If you have a great idea, everybody else is hunkered down. Nobody's out talking to their customers. Very few people are out trying to generate new business. It's a free market right now. Now's the time for us to go make it happen.
That's a really good point. Now, speaking of hunkering down, books, do you have any prominent books that have really been imperative in kind of shaping the trajectory or your mindset
Yes,
in life?
Yeah, I have two. Can I share two with you really quick? In fact, I brought them right here because they're really pretty powerful books. Here's the first one. You've probably seen this one, 3 Feet from Gold, right?
Such a sad story.
What? It's a sad story. It is, but it's it plays off of Napoleon Hill's, the Think and Grow Rich, obviously. But the sad story is too many people quit too early, right? And if you have a good idea, the mark of success of a business owner is, are you resilient? Will you stick in there even when things get tough? And for me, that's been my go-to book. And the times when I feel like I'm down, I pick that book up, flip through it, reread parts of it, and remind myself, look, I'm on a mission here. And I may not have reached the goal yet, but I'm getting closer. And so to me, that's one of those powerful, just inspirational, lift you up. Look, I'm not going to be the quitter. I'm gonna make this thing work. That's my first book. But then here's this. Here's a book this is my business Bible book. It's called The Road Less Stupid, written by Keith Cunningham. He's the rich dad in Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Keith Cunningham is actually the financial genius that taught Robert Kiyosaki everything he knows. And Keith Cunningham's a brilliant guy. And in this book, he puts in all the lessons that he's learned over these years about things that we do in business that are basically stupid mistakes. And his job is to keep us from making those. If we could just avoid making stupid mistakes in our business, we would be hugely successful, right? It's like Warren Buffett's thing that says the first rule of investing is never lose money, right? Same thing here. If you can avoid the stupid mistakes, even average performance will get you a great business future. So those are my two go-to. I got a library of others, but those are the ones that I rely on a lot.
Speaking of books that are relied on, I've got this one right here.
There you go.
Yeah, and for anybody wanting a visual of your family, I guess that's Allen and Sons, your dad's.
That's my dad in the middle. I'm the little skinny dude on the left.
In the blue shirt?
No, actually, that's my brother. That's my older brother. I'm the little dude in the white shirt. So just to the right of my dad. Yeah, I'm the guy that looks like he hasn't been fed in about 2 months. That's me. That was my growing up days, yeah.
And
last that book, question. By the way, real quick, that book, I wrote that just after my dad passed, and I did that as a tribute to my dad, because I wanted the struggles that my dad had to not go either unknown or unused. So I wanted to let people learn from him and do the right thing so that they could avoid the pain that my dad had in his business experience. So I wrote that. That's my tribute to my dad.
It makes a lot of sense, Rich. And I know some people during this time of crisis, this pandemic, were furloughed and were sitting at home and started their own businesses just because nobody's hiring and they're kind of forced into it. So they could really take a lesson from from your Tour de Profit and from your book that you've written.
Well, that's the hope, right? Look, I mean, none of us went to school to learn how to run a business, right? I did an MBA program. They didn't teach me how to run a business there. I learned it by making some huge mistakes along the way. And we all will. So look, if I'm going to start over, or if I'm talking to somebody who's starting out, I'm going to say, find all the advice and guidance you can get, pick the stuff that works for you and use that. But don't try to do it just thinking you're smart enough to do it on your own. None of us are.
Mm-hmm. Now, that was actually the last question that I had for you, was, you know, a large stumbling block in your life, but I think kind of with your dad's stumbling block being at the cornerstone of your business, and then you just saying you could learn from others' shortcomings and figure out what they're doing right versus what they're doing wrong and not repeat it. So did you have like a turning point in your life that was a stumbling block, or did you just kind of build off of what you saw from your father?
You know, Ryan, I you know, if you were to say, you know, what's the stumbling block that I had, um, here's what I would say it is. You know, when you start doing something and you're trying to enter a new industry, or you're trying to enter your industry, the typical thing that we do is we do some market research, we do some competitive analysis, and we look around to see what other people are doing, whether we're in the insurance business, in the real estate business, in the business coaching business that I'm in, manufacturing, whatever. We'll do market research and we'll look at other people. Our tendency is to go look at the people who are doing it well and try to do it like them. And so my stumbling block, I believe, when I started doing this 14, 15 years ago, was I tried to be like somebody else. Mm. And frankly, I think that's a huge mistake. I think people are looking for somebody to be uniquely different, to do things differently, to look at the competition and see what they're doing and ask the question, what could they be doing differently or better that they're not, and do that. Don't try to emulate them. Don't try to be like, look, I don't want to be like Tony Robbins, right? If I tried to emulate Tony Robbins, I'd be a huge failure.
And really tired.
And really tired. And, you know, I'd have to lift weights and stuff, right? So, I mean, it wouldn't work for me. So don't try to be, you know, what my lesson has been, don't try to be like other people. Be genuinely you. But look to the people around you and ask the question, what are they missing? What are their customers not getting that I might be able to give them? And I'll be honest and tell you, I mean, I've had, you know, even with this new course that I did, I've had several people say, you're giving that away? That's everything you teach. You're giving it away? Are you crazy? And my answer to that is, yeah, I'm giving it away. Because I know my competitors aren't willing to give it away. So I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to give it away. And guess what? I'll end up winning in the long run. Right. And that's the way we ought to think about our business.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time. We could definitely talk for hours on this. I don't want to cut it short, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And hey, I think the world of you. Thanks so much for coming on. And you know, if I were on a boat with like 100 people that weren't in my family, so you're not on the boat, Wil, and I had to push all of them off, Rich, you'd be the last person that I pushed off. So.
You know, Ryan, you know, I love you, man. And Wil, you know, the two of you guys partnering up, it doesn't get any better than that. I want for the both of you guys nothing but huge success. I'm so proud of what you guys have created and have done. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you, Rich. It's been a pleasure.